Hi everyone, thanks for checking out the video and the channel. This is a list of my top 5 things I'd like to see addressed in 2042 in an ideal world. I have a special mention section at the end, so stay tuned. I want to make it clear that I know specialists aren't for everyone. However, 2042 is so linked to the idea of specialists that we are unlikely to see them changed or removed as a concept. So I'm taking that as a red and therefore not up for discussion in this video. In at 5 is deployment of gadgets in areas deemed out of bounds or OOB to the other team. Admittedly, this is a personal bugbear of mine, but the constant hilltop camping from tanks that stay in their own spawn, which of course is out of bounds to the enemy, and deploy a multitude of Irish's APS to protect themselves is getting ridiculous. I accept this is happening in areas that enemies can reach, but for it to happen in out of bounds areas is just a little bit off. Irish's APS is the most powerful defensive gadget in my opinion, with a short redeployment cooldown, unlimited use of 2 of them, and an almost unlimited uptime. Irish's APS can render a tank almost invincible to C5 rockets, missiles, heli rockets, or jet bombs. The main argument to allow it to happen is that you can just shoot them or use teamwork to destroy them. The problem these arguments overlook is that generally you can't see the APS to shoot it until you're in the OOB area, and given that there are 2 of them minimum, you'll die from the countdown or to the tank itself before you do. The question of teamwork is a valid one, but it depends heavily on you having a squad on comms or that listens to chat and is willing to act. Given that how most medics don't even revive you when standing on your down body, the question of relying on teamwork is straw man at best. In short, for me, this is a very much needed change, but only in terms of being out of bounds. Anything that is inbounds, fair game. In at number 4, I've got an in-depth and comparative stats browser. Whilst one's own stats are there in the game, the actual information is clunky, non-refinable by filter, and doesn't give any kind of comparative. For example, whilst I may be able to search a gadget to see how close I am to T1, unless I go to the player card section and scroll to gadgets, I don't know how many kills I have over T1. This lack of information accessibility isn't great. And on top of that, it doesn't show you where you lie in comparison to the rest of the world. For example, I know I have over 2,500 throwing knife kills, but the reality is that stat is meaningless because I don't know how that compares to everyone else. Want to be the best medic in the world with the most revives? No way to find out through the onboard UI. Of course we have battlefieldtracker.com, but despite having more information like where you lie in the world, even that isn't fully helpful. And certainly, it lags a bit in terms of updating. It shouldn't be the job of a third party to give you stats from a game, and I'd love to see a much more in-depth stats page with better flow and a more comparative feel. The RoboDog. This has become a real discussion when brought up. Some say that apart from the tankiness, it's fine. Some say that it's fine completely as it is, and some say that the whole thing needs rethinking. Personally, I fall into the latter category. Whilst I understand the point of the RoboDog, or Ranger to give its official name, as an assistant, I do feel that it's kind of pointless as a gadget. I do agree it's too tanky, and that it lasts way too long after its owner is downed or killed. I also feel its range of shooting and spotting are too good within that context. It's also a selfish gadget, as it is normally used by lone wolf campers to protect themselves, and so doesn't really benefit the team. I'm also not at all a fan of constantly having to fight AI gadgets like Boris's much weaker admittedly turret, or the Ranger. I would suggest a rework on the Ranger to make it more a support role, being able to dispense health or ammo whilst retaining its spot function, but losing the weapon. The flip side there is that that would then essentially make it a secondary Angel's Crate. Perhaps the solution to that would be to put a limit on the amount of ammo or health it can dispense before it self-destructs. At the very least, if the RoboDog is to remain as it is, then a serious reduction in armor is definitely needed, potentially along with a spotting and engagement range nerf. In at number 2 is the server browser. I imagine many of you are wondering why this is only number 2 on my list. The simple reason is that I think it's fair to say it's probably the number 1 request in the community, and as such, whilst I 100% agree, it's a bit low-hanging fruit to bring to this list, whilst at the same time, I'd be mad if I didn't include it. As it stands, the rotation of maps is exhaustingly repetitive. I have been on the same map several times in a row, both in Conquest and Breakthrough, and it's even more soul-destroying when you play on Defense 3 or 4 times in a row on the same map. Of course, Portal does give us a server browser and even an XP notification as to whether partial, full or no XP will be rewarded. However, this isn't the main area and not the official experiences. I hate the idea of a standardized Battlefield experience. I find the diversity that groups and clans offer keeps the game ticking over. One only has to look at Squid's Chaos Rush to see that with some tweaks, interest can be maintained in a game that might be felt to fail in certain areas. However, the question has to be asked, how can it be possible in Portal, but not in AOW? The thing is, that kind of strays into the server owner running sphere of things, and we're talking about the official experience offered on the Battlefield All-Out Warfare page. The issue that most people find annoying, as far as I have seen, is that there isn't any persistent server rotation that would be guaranteed with a server setup as we saw in previous Battlefield titles. If I could join a server knowing that the rotation was set in stone and not have to wait even with the reduced time to find out if I'm going to be on renewal or hourglass or breakaway for the umpteenth time that day, I'd certainly stick around longer in game. But for now, even with my passion for Battlefield, if I find things aren't enjoyable for whatever reason, whether the team isn't clicking or we're just being owned, I tend to quit the map, especially if I've already played it a bunch that day. It's demoralising, and it's a real factor in continued enjoyment for vast swathes of the community. And in at number 1, my most desired change is an infantry-only map. I recently tweeted this image with the words, "Please Battlefield, an inf-only map, please." It got 338 likes, with the vast majority of people sharing my view that it would be nice to have even just one map that was truly infantry focused with no vehicles at all. I proposed using an existing map as shown, but hemmed into the ship on Stranded. The ship has verticality, multiple routes, and can be extended to a minimum area outside. It's basically a ready-made 2042 Operation Metro with some verticality thrown in. Of course, there were cries of "that's not true Battlefield," but then who is anyone to gatekeep what true Battlefield is? For me, Battlefield is simply having fun, and having those epic moments we all dream of. Of course, what Battlefield is known for is the wide open maps and vehicle gameplay, but that comes with some drawbacks. Firstly, if you don't have a vehicle, you spend a lot of time running about, which burns gaming time, and isn't exactly action-packed. Secondly, if you can't fly a heli or a jet, even if you tried, then you cut the vehicles in half that you can use. And thirdly, but by no means last, the vehicles are massively powerful, and there is nothing fun about running miles only to be essentially reset by some hill camping tank or someone in a Hind Condor or Nightbird. Interestingly, there are a number of complaints both in that tweet thread and in-game that people always stick to the indoor flags or the central flags such as the ship on Stranded. That alone should point out that most people are fed up of being cannon fodder to those aforementioned vehicle mains, and prefer the instant access to action and fun over running from ages from point A to point B. The fact of the matter is that to play an infantry-only map means people can feel they have at least some chance against a fellow soldier. Even the most advanced player using an engineer can't easily blow up a tank with rockets. It's also quick to the action, and at times complete chaos. It's no wonder that people liked Metro and Operation Underground and Zebra Tower so much. It's fine to say it's not what Battlefield is, but frankly, I think it's more about giving people a break from the constancy of the larger maps. And now we have my special mention. My special mention goes to the tick rate. It currently sits at 45 Hz, and the thing I think it's for is stability for crossplay for 128 people. However, the season-on-season increase in hit reg problems and dying behind cover has become more and more of a concern and annoyance to the community. Despite the stability concern, and I get that, I really do, I still find it an odd decision given that we had 120, was it, by the end of BF4? And 60 was the norm across all platforms for BFV, and BF1 it was 30 for consoles and 60 for PC. Something needs to change. I recognise the need for stability, as I said, but we have bigger maps with more players than ever before, and the servers are definitely creaking. An updated higher tick rate should be high on the list of things to seriously consider undertaking. Well, that's my top 5 for Season 4 so far. Do you agree? Do you want to see something else up there? Or do you think my list needs to change in order of importance? Let me know in the comments. As always, stay Wagyu Legendaries, and I'll see you on the battlefield.